The morning I found my miscarriage story trending online, I was still bleeding, still crying, still trying to breathe, and the name beside the leak, Zubaida, my sister-in-law. But pain has a strange way of sharpening silence. So I didn't scream. I didn't reply. I unlocked what she thought was buried. Zami lay on the hospital bed, not saying a word. Her hands clutched the white sheets as if holding on to something that was already gone. Nurses moved quietly around her, whispering, "Sorry," under their breath. But their words didn't reach her heart. Her baby was gone. The tiny life she had prayed for, dreamed of, waited for, gone. Outside the window, people walked. Cars passed. The world kept moving. But inside Zami, everything had stopped. A part of her had broken forever. Her husband, Dari, sat in the corner, head down, hands covering his face. He hadn't spoken much since the doctor broke the news. His silence felt like a second stab. Zami needed a hug, a word, anything, but got nothing. Then the door flew open. Her cousin ran in, face pale, holding her phone with shaky hands. "Zami," she said, breathless. "Your sister-in-law. She posted it. She posted your miscarriage online." Zami blinked. "What?" Her voice cracked. Her cousin handed her the phone. On the screen was Zubaida's social media post. Her sister-in-law. The caption read, "She always acts perfect. Now look, God humbles the proud." Below it, a video clip. A video of Zami in her hospital gown, face swollen with tears, holding her stomach. Zami stared at it. Her pain, her loss, her most private moment turned into entertainment. Likes, comments, people laughing, mocking. Some wrote things like, "It's karma." Others joked about her fake perfect life. No one cared she was in pain. No one cared she had lost her baby. Zami felt like the air left the room. She wasn't just grieving anymore. She was humiliated, betrayed, destroyed. Her heart was already bleeding. Now her name was bleeding on the internet too. She didn't cry, not this time. She just stared. A part of her wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to ask why. But another part of her went silent. Zubaida had taken her pain and turned it into gossip, into content. And in that moment, as Zami looked at that post, a new feeling slowly rose in her chest. Not sadness this time, something colder, stronger. She didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything changed. The post spread like fire. In just a few hours, it was everywhere. Zubaida had shared it publicly, with no shame, no care, no thought for Zami's pain. The caption was cruel. "She always acts perfect. Now look, God humbles the proud." Along with the words was a video clip. Zami in the hospital gown, crying, her face red and swollen, hands shaking as she tried to hold in the pain. The worst moment of her life, now open for the whole world to see. People started reacting, thousands of likes, but not the kind that come with love or support, the laughing kind, the mocking kind. Strangers began commenting under the post, making jokes, spreading false stories. Some said Zami was pretending, others said she deserved it. One even wrote, "That's what happens to people who show off too much." Another wrote, "Maybe the child was never hers to keep." No one asked if she was okay. No one cared how deep the pain was. No one remembered that a baby had died. All they saw was Zami crying, and they turned her sadness into a spectacle. The internet had turned her miscarriage into a circus. Some people started sharing the post with their own nasty opinions. They talked about how Zami always looked proud in her pictures, how she wore nice clothes, how she seemed happy in her marriage. Now they were tearing her apart, piece by piece, as if her sorrow was something she deserved. Zami saw it all from her bed. Every notification, every comment, every share, like tiny knives stabbing the same wound over and over. She didn't even know how Zubaida got that video. She didn't remember anyone filming her, but there it was. Her private moment, her real tears, all over the internet for likes, laughs, and evil words. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Even friends she hadn't spoken to in years were messaging her, asking if the post was real. Some sent her screenshots, thinking she hadn't seen it. Others just sent sorry without really meaning it. It felt like her whole world was watching her fall apart and doing nothing to help. Zubaida didn't delete the post. In fact, she added more later, little comments, laughing emojis, fake wisdom about how pride comes before a fall. She acted like she was teaching Zami a lesson. like she was doing the world a favor by exposing her. Zami felt numb. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All she could think about was how something so painful, so personal, had been stolen from her and thrown to people who didn't even know her and didn't care. They didn't see a woman who just lost her child. They only saw a reason to laugh. Zami returned home from the hospital with slow, weak steps. Her body was tired, but her heart was even heavier. Everything inside her felt empty. She had just lost her baby, and now the whole world had watched it happen, thanks to Zubaida. Still, she walked into the house quietly, hoping for peace, but deep down, she already knew there was none. As she entered, the first person she saw was Zubaida, sitting comfortably in the living room, like nothing had happened. She smiled sweetly and stood up, holding a bowl of soup. "I made this for you," she said, acting kind, as if she hadn't just turned Zami's pain into public entertainment. Zami didn't answer. She just looked at her, her heart cold. She could smell the fakeness in her voice. The soup wasn't made with care. It was made to cover up guilt. Dari, her husband, came out of the bedroom, looking tired and restless. He didn't hug Zami. He didn't ask how she was feeling. He just rubbed his forehead and said, "Please, Zami, let's not cause drama. She's family." That was all he had to say. Not a word about what Zubaida had done. Not a word about the post. Not even a word of comfort for Zami's broken heart. Just don't cause drama. Zami looked at both of them, one smiling like a devil in disguise, the other too weak to stand by his wife. The walls of the house felt tight around her. Every room, every corner felt heavy. It was no longer a home. It was a prison of silence, a place full of fake smiles, hidden truths, and buried pain. She tried to sit and rest, but her mind couldn't stop spinning. She thought about her baby, about the video, about the comments from strangers, and now, this cold house. The air felt heavy, even when Zubaida walked around pretending to care, asking, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Zami knew it was all for show. She wanted to cry, but even her tears felt tired now. Nothing was safe anymore, not even her own home. Zubaida moved around like she had done nothing wrong. Dari just wanted peace, even if it meant ignoring the truth. And Zami, she was left alone in her pain, forced to smile in front of people who broke her. Her heart wasn't healing. It was getting worse. The silence, the fake kindness, the lack of support. It was all too much. She felt like she was drowning, slowly, with no one reaching out to save her. That house was supposed to be a place of comfort, but now it was full of shadows. One night, while lying on her bed with the lights off, Zami's phone buzzed. She had not been expecting any messages, especially not at that hour. She picked up the phone slowly, her body still sore, her heart still raw. The message came from an unknown number. It had only 3 words. "Check Owalabi Street." That was it. No name, no explanation, just those words. Zami stared at the message for a few minutes, confused. She didn't want more drama. She didn't want any more surprises. So, at first, she ignored it. She dropped the phone beside her and closed her eyes. But her heart wouldn't settle. Something about the message kept pulling at her. After a while, she picked up the phone again and opened the sender's profile. What she saw made her body go cold. The profile picture was small but clear. It showed a man holding a little boy. The man was smiling. Zami looked closer. Her eyes widened. It was Zubaida's husband. She recognized him immediately. The same face she had seen many times at family gatherings. The same voice she had heard laughing loudly in the house. But it wasn't just the man that caught her attention. The boy he was holding had something that made her chest tighten. A scar. A small but clear scar on his chin. The exact same place where Zubaida's husband had one too. It was not a coincidence. The boy looked like a smaller version of him. The same eyes. The same smile. The same scar. Zami sat up straight in her bed. Her hands started to shake. Who was this boy? Why had no one in the family ever mentioned him? Why was someone sending her this now? Was this the truth Zubaida had been hiding all along? She zoomed into the picture again and again, trying to convince herself it wasn't real, that maybe it was old, or maybe it was just someone who looked like him. But deep down, she knew. Her heart already knew. Something was going on. Something big. The message was short, but it had opened a door she didn't even know existed. A door full of questions. A door full of secrets. Zami didn't reply to the number. She didn't tell anyone what she saw. Not yet. But in her heart, a new fire started to burn. A quiet fire. One that whispered, "This isn't over." And for the first time in weeks, Zami felt something different from pain. She felt curiosity and power. The next morning, Zami got dressed quietly. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She saved the message on her phone, took a deep breath, and left the house. Her heart was beating fast, but her face stayed calm. She took a taxi straight to Owolabi Street. The number led her to a small, clean house with flower pots by the door. It looked peaceful, like a home full of love. But Zami knew love wasn't always what it seemed. She walked to the door and knocked twice. A few seconds passed. Then, the door slowly opened. A young woman stood there, wearing a long house dress. Her hair was wrapped in a scarf, and in her arms, she carried twin babies, one sleeping, the other playing with her necklace. Her face looked soft but tired, like someone who had been up all night with crying children. Before Zami could say anything, the woman asked, "Yes? Can I help you?" Zami didn't speak. Her eyes moved past the woman, into the living room. There, sitting on the couch, relaxed, holding a TV remote, was Zubaida's husband. He was laughing at something on the screen. Then he looked up and saw Zami. His face froze. His smile dropped. He didn't say a word, just stared at her, like a child caught stealing. The woman noticed the change in his face and looked back at Zami again. "Who are you?" she asked, more firmly this time. Still, Zami said nothing. She didn't need to speak. Her eyes had seen enough. She pulled out her phone, raised it, and took one picture. One single flash. The woman looked confused. The man stood up slowly, clearly shaken. But Zami had already turned around. No yelling, no questions, no fight. She got what she came for. The babies, the woman, the man, all in one frame. That photo was all she needed. As she walked away, her steps felt lighter. Not because she was happy, but because she now held something powerful. Truth, proof, a secret no one was supposed to know. The same way Zubaida had taken her pain and shared it with the world, Zami now had a truth that could shatter Zubaida's own world. She didn't smile, she didn't cry, she just kept walking, quietly, steady. The game had changed. Zami walked back into the house the same way she left, calm, quiet, with her face showing nothing. But something inside her had changed. She was no longer the woman who cried in silence. She was no longer the broken one. She had seen the truth with her own eyes, held it in her hands, and now kept it safe on her phone. A photo that could burn everything Zubaida had ever bragged about. But she didn't say a word. When she stepped into the living room, Zubaida was there as usual, watching a show, sipping juice, laughing loudly like she ruled the whole house. She glanced at Zami and said, "You went out?" Zami only smiled gently and walked past her without answering. It was the first time she had smiled in weeks. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind that comes when you know something the other person doesn't. She made herself a cup of tea and sat down at the corner of the room, calm, quiet. Zubaida kept staring, clearly confused. This wasn't the weak, heartbroken Zami she was used to. Something was different, but she didn't know what, and that made her uneasy. The next morning, Zubaida couldn't help herself. Her mouth had to move. She looked Zami up and down and said with a smirk, "You know, some women miscarry because their wombs are cursed. Maybe God was showing you something." Zami looked at her, her face still peaceful. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply took a slow sip of her tea, then said, "And some people's homes are built on lies." Then she looked away and continued sipping like nothing happened. Zubaida blinked. That one sentence hit her harder than any slap could. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Her face tightened, but she forced a fake laugh and stood up to leave the room. Zami sat there, still smiling softly. She didn't need to fight. She didn't need to explain anything, because she had the truth, and the truth was patient. Now, every time Zubaida walked into the room, she glanced nervously at Zami, wondering what she meant, wondering if she knew something. The power had shifted. Zami's silence was now louder than any words. Her calmness made Zubaida restless. The house had a new tension, a quiet one. Zami didn't need revenge right away. She could wait, because she knew the storm was coming. Zubaida's birthday was coming, and she made sure everyone knew about it. She decorated the whole house like a palace. Bright lights outside, music speakers at every corner, and camera crews walking around. Influencers, friends, family. People kept arriving, all dressed up, smiling, ready to post every moment online. Zubaida wore a shining dress and high heels, her makeup perfect. She moved around proudly, welcoming everyone like a queen. Her husband stood by her side, quiet but pretending to enjoy the attention. Zami was there too, sitting quietly in a corner. She wore a simple gown, her face calm, holding a small glass of juice. No one paid much attention to her. To them, she was just the quiet, sad woman. But only she knew what was about to happen. Later in the evening, Zubaida took the mic and stood in front of her guests. The lights dimmed a little. Everyone turned to look at her. She smiled wide, raised a glass of wine and said, "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate me, and to my wonderful husband. I know I'm the only queen of your heart." People clapped, some cheered, and cameras clicked. But then Zami stood up, slowly, quietly. She walked to the middle of the room. The clapping stopped. People looked at her, confused. She turned to the crowd and said calmly, "If you're the only queen of his heart, then explain this." With one click on her phone, the projector screen behind Zubaida lit up. There it was, a photo, clear, sharp, and shocking. Zubaida's husband, sitting on a couch, a woman standing beside him, in her arms, twin babies. The resemblance was clear. The man in the photo looked just like the one standing beside Zubaida now. Same face, same smile, no denying it. The room went silent. No music, no laughs, just shock. Guests stared at the screen, mouths open. Cameras stopped recording. Some people gasped. Zubaida turned slowly and saw the image. Her wineglass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Her husband took one look and walked out of the room, not saying a word. People whispered. Some took pictures. Others stared at Zubaida, waiting for her to say something, anything. But she couldn't speak. Her eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open, but no words came out. Zami didn't wait. She walked out slowly, head held high, past the same people who once laughed at her pain. This time, they weren't laughing. Zubaida stood frozen, her eyes locked on the projector screen. Her smile had vanished. Her hands shook. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if the air had suddenly become too heavy. She took a step back, stumbled slightly, and then her wineglass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. The sharp sound echoed across the room, but no one moved. Her husband, standing beside her just moments ago, didn't say a word. He didn't defend himself. He didn't deny the photo. He simply turned around and walked out of the party, pushing past the confused guests, his head down. He didn't even look back. Whispers started immediately. People leaned into each other, shocked faces, wide eyes. Some guests pulled out their phones, secretly recording the moment. Some were already typing out messages to their gossip groups. The woman who once mocked Zami's pain was now standing in the middle of her own scandal, and the internet was watching. Zubaida tried to speak, but her lips only trembled. No words came out. She looked around, but no one offered comfort. The same people who once praised her, who clapped when she raised her glass, now watched her with judgment and curiosity. But Zami didn't stay to enjoy the moment. She had already turned around. She walked out of the house without rushing, her step steady and light. The night air touched her skin as she stepped into the darkness. But for the first time in many weeks, the darkness didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful, free. She didn't need to see what happened next. She didn't care about the gossip or the drama. She had shown the truth. That was enough. As she walked down the road alone, her heart felt calm. The pain she carried for so long, the tears, the humiliation, the loss, it all felt like it was lifting, slowly, quietly, like a heavy blanket being removed from her shoulders. She thought about how Zubaida had shouted loud, laughed loudly, and even posted loudly. But in the end, none of it could hide the truth, and the truth didn't need to scream. It only needed to be seen. Zami smiled to herself, not out of pride, but from peace. She finally understood something deep. Revenge isn't always about shouting or hurting back. Sometimes, revenge is quiet. It's truth, standing in the light, while lies fall apart in silence. Weeks passed after the party, but the memory of that night still haunted Zubaida. Her name had spread all over social media, but not for the reasons she wanted. The video of her husband walking out, the picture of his secret family, and the look on her face, it was everywhere. People she once called friends were now quiet. Some blocked her. Others gossiped behind her back. Her perfect image was broken, and no amount of makeup or lies could fix it. She stayed inside most days, not wanting to face the world. She barely ate, barely spoke. Her phone, once full of messages and praise, now sat quiet. Her husband hadn't returned. He didn't call. He didn't explain. It was like he had vanished, along with her pride. One morning, she opened the front door to pick up a delivery and saw something else waiting. A small white envelope with her name written in neat handwriting. There was no stamp, no address, just her name. Curious and nervous, she picked it up and slowly opened it. Inside was a simple note. Only 3 short lines. You posted my pain. I posted your truth. May we both learn that women are not weapons, unless forced to become one. Zubaida stood there holding the letter, her hands shaking again. She read the words over and over. Each sentence hit her like a wave. The message was clear, powerful, and quiet, just like Zami had become. She remembered the day she posted Zami's miscarriage, how she laughed, how she added the cruel caption, how she watched the comments roll in and felt proud. At the time, it felt like power, but now she understood. What she thought was power was actually cruelty. What Zami had done in return wasn't just revenge, it was truth, painful, sharp, but honest. Zami didn't shout, she didn't fight, she didn't even insult her, she simply held up a mirror, and Zubaida was forced to see herself. She sat down at the doorstep, holding the letter close to her chest. For the first time in a long while, tears filled her eyes. Not from anger, not from shame, but from real regret. She finally felt the weight of everything she had done, and she knew Zami had every reason to break her, but she didn't. She just exposed the truth and walked away. The letter stayed with Zubaida, not as a threat, but as a reminder that women carry more than pain. They carry fire. Years passed, and life slowly changed for Zami. The pain that once held her down had now become her power. She didn't try to erase her past. She used it. She started a small art school in her neighborhood, a peaceful place filled with color, laughter, and healing. The walls were covered with drawings from young girls who came to learn, not just about art, but about strength. Zami taught them how to turn their stories into pictures, their pain into beauty, and their silence into expression. One sunny afternoon, a young girl named Ireti sat beside her. Ireti was quiet and smart, always drawing in the corner, always asking deep questions. That day, as they sat on the wooden bench outside the school, Ireti looked up and asked, "Auntie Zami, is it true someone once posted your sadness online?" Zami looked at the girl, her eyes soft but steady. She nodded slowly and replied, "Yes, it's true." For a second, Ireti's face fell, but then Zami smiled, a calm, knowing smile that came from years of healing. "But I turned it into something stronger." She reached beside her, picked up a clean paintbrush, and placed it gently in Ireti's hand. "Here," she said, "now go paint your truth before someone else tries to write it for you." Ireti's eyes lit up. She looked at the brush like it was a key to something she hadn't yet discovered. She held it tightly and walked toward the studio, ready to create something new. Zami watched her go, her heart full. She had once felt broken, humiliated, forgotten, but now she was standing tall, not because life had been easy, but because she chose not to stay in the pain. She chose to rise, to rebuild, to help others find their voices. She didn't need to be loud to be strong. She didn't need revenge to feel powerful. She just needed truth and the courage to turn it into light. And now, through her art school, she was passing that light to others. Because sometimes the worst stories don't end you, they shape you. And Zami had become the woman who wore her scars like armor, strong, calm, and unshakable. If Zami's story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded your pain can become your power. Drop a flexed bicep emoji if you've ever turned your wounds into wisdom. Tag a woman who inspires you to rise. And remember, speak your truth before someone else writes the story for you.